Okay, so good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aparajita Misra, and I welcome you to the first seminar of the year 2022 on behalf of the OSA Women's Empowerment Forum. We are very fortunate to have Mrs. Mamata Misra, who is a certified mindfulness-based stress reduction teacher, and she has many years of experience on that. She is the speaker. Mrs. Misra, as most of you know, was actually the face of OSA Women's Forum and the OSA Convention for many, many years, in fact, decades, I think. So we'll start the seminar with a few words from our fearless leader and our OSA president, Mr. Gyana Patnaik. And he'll tell us about his vision for OSA and also OWE. Mrs. Annapurna Viswal will introduce the speaker and our moderator, Dr. Sasmita Misra, after that. The seminar will begin after that. We request the audience to write any questions they have on the chat, and the questions will be answered during the Q&A. We will then close with the vote of thanks. So this is the logistics of the seminar. Most importantly, if you have not done it already, please have one reason with you for an activity during the seminar. Mr. Gyana Patnaik, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Aparajita, madam. It is I will start with this. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkhavag bhavet. Amara samastinki namaskar januchi. Odisha Society ro Women Empowerment Forum hochi gote very vibrant organization branch. Jadio Odisha Society ki mo dekhi asuchi last 40 वर्ष एवं विभिन्न समय स्पोराडिकली आमर विभिन्न कन्वेंशन रे वुमेन फोरम रा किछि आमे सुनु किंतु गोटे विधिवत भाव रे गोटे स्ट्रक्चर्ड वे रे जिनसोडा को हो नथिला किंतु मो बहुत खुशी जे लास्ट 2-3 वर्ष कुकु मैडम जो प्रेसिडेंट हेले एवं आमर केतक वुमेन दे थॉट वेरी सीरियसली अबाउट इट तापरे इटा गोटे भारी विधिवत भाव रे चाली दिस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इज सो कोहेसिव एंड सो ऑर्गेनाइज एटा वर्तन मते मन रे बहुत खुशी दोची काहे कि ना हमर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन रा क्लोज टू 50% और मोर देन 50% वुमेन एंड दे नीड टू हैव ए गुड रिप्रेजेंटेशन गुड वॉइस नॉट जस्ट कॉल पॉलिटिकल साइड बट आल्सो ब्रिंगिंग द सोशल इश्यूज दे हम कम्युनिटी कोन फेस करूची हाउ कुड वी सपोर्ट ईच अदर तनो सबु बेले जेते बेले को वुमेन माने दे रेज द वॉइस एंड रेज द कंसर्न आई नो दैट इट हैज अ लॉट ऑफ लेजिटिमेसी and also this voice needs to be heard. So I appreciate effort of the team, Mrs. Aparajita Misra, Sujata Patnaik, Mrs. Tapti Panda, Mrs. Smiti Panda, Mrs. Tapasi Misra, Mrs. Nita Mohanty, Mrs. Anu Biswal, Mrs. Rajusri Mohanty, Mrs. Subhasri Joshi, Mrs. Kuku Das, eman houchanti leadership team re बेस्ट काम करूचंती बिहाइंड स्क्रीन हमर लास्ट 2 वर्ष भितरे केते जे सेमिनार हे जायची इनो जोडा कि बेस्ट समय उपयोगी एवं हेल्पिंग टू आवर कम्युनिटी लाइक देखंतु जे ट्राइबल वेलफेयर प्रोजेक्ट हमर नानो फाइनेंसिंग सिस्टम हमर मेंटल हेल्थ सेशन थिंग्स माय मदर डिडंट टेल मी डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस ये सब जिनसोडा को जो सेमिनार हेची बहुत जुगोपयोगी एवं समय उपयोगी हेची एवं केवल इट इज जस्ट नॉट ए सेमिनार जस्ट टू ब्रिंग अवेयरनेस हमर मध्य बहुत वॉलंटियर काम करूचंती ओडिसा रे काम करूचंती एवं अमेरिका रे मध्य काम करूचंती जोटा कि हमर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन पे अत्यंत जरूरी दिस इज होची आई विश दैट वी कैरी फॉरवर्ड विथ दिस वुमेन्स एम्पावरमेंट एक्टिविटीज हमर जहा चालीची फॉर all the time in the future. There should not be any question that this is one of our vibrant part of Odisha society. आउ बेसी किछि न कहि मु वेलकम करबी मिसेस ममता मिश्र जहा जीतू मैडम कहले एट द बिगिनिंग जे ममता मैडम इज वेरी वेल नोन इन आवर कम्युनिटी माने मु जानि छि तांकू सीड्स एक्टिविटीज सिंस 25-30 वर्ष पूर्व ऑस्टिन टेक्सास बेस्ट कम्युनिटी पे काम करूचंती very good social worker and very pioneer for the community, a good voice for the women and for the people, especially those who are struggling, suffering. Ajir jo topic jo select karahaichi je mindfulness based stress reduction. I think I'm a lot of stress re jauchu. This is going to be very helpful. आउ मध्य मु वेलकम करूची मिसेस मिश्र को ता सहित मध्य मु बहुत खुशी जे टू बी मॉडरेटेड बाय हमर सस्मिता मिश्र सस्मिता मु बहुत खुशी हमर नेक्स्ट जनरेशन माने जेते जन्म होइकरी बढ़िकरी पाठ पढ़िकरी एई सब कम्युनिटी एक्टिविटीज रे इन्वॉल्व सेति बे मो मन रे अफुरंत आनंद एति की कही मु मोर वक्तव्य शेष करबी एवं आशा करबी हमर नेक्स्ट कार्यक्रम सुचारू रूपे चलिबो थैंक यू
Thank you, Anna. I just will request Mrs. Annu Viswal to introduce the speaker and the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you, Jitu. Okay. Namaskar. The topic for today's seminar, Train the Brain, based on mindfulness, couldn't have been more fitting for the mental challenges that we all are facing for more than 2 years of quarantine due to the pandemic. We are fortunate to have our main speaker, who is a trained professional on mindfulness, to share her knowledge and experience on how to train our brain to meet the challenges in life. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce you to our main speaker, Mrs. Mamata Mishra. Mamata Mishra has been teaching various mindfulness classes, including John Kabat-Zinn's 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, program in Austin, Texas, for about 6 years. She qualified at the UMass Center for Mindfulness and got certified by Brown Mindfulness Center and East Coast Mindfulness. She attends long, silent, insight meditation retreats to deepen her practice and learn from different teachers. Mamata Mishra earned a master's in computer science from the University of Texas at Austin in 1976, when there were no Indian students and hardly any women of any color among the graduate students in computer science. She worked as a software engineer for 16 years. Then she took various trainings in the nonprofit sector and volunteered for the next 14 years, first as a literacy tutor for adults, and then as a violence prevention educator, peer counselor, and legal advocate for victims and survivors of family violence, and the director of a nonprofit called Saheli for Asian women, now called Asian Family Support Services of Austin, or APSA, that she helped build and sustain. Mamata Mishra serves in the board of Austin chapter of Pratham USA and the Sustainable Economic and Educational Development Society, SEEDS. Her community work has been recognized by various organizations such as YWCA, Safe Samaritan Center, and Austin Community Foundation, to name a few. Mamata is mother of 2 sons and has lived in Austin, Texas since 1974 with her husband, Dr. Joydam Mishra, a professor emeritus in computer science at the University of Texas. Mamata is also a poet and has published a book titled Winter Blossoms and Other Poems. She has organized many community workshops, including women's forums at several OSA conventions. Personally, It's my great pleasure to introduce Mamata Mishra as our main speaker today, who is one of our oldest friends in the USA. Now, let me introduce you to the moderator of our seminar, Dr. Sasmita Mishra. Sasmita Mishra is a physician trained as board-certified diagnostic radiologist and subspecialty fellowship trained in breast radiology. Her expertise in breast imaging plays a pivotal role in the early detection and treatment of breast cancer. She has been in practice for over 16 years, and she firmly believes that mindfulness-based interventions help her patients cope with their diagnosis and plays a role during their cancer treatment. She lives in Chicago, Illinois, with her husband, Ryan, and 2 children, Rohan and Ariana. It's my great pleasure to introduce to you Sasmita Mishra, who is a second-generation Odia American. Thank you all for joining the seminar. Now, please, Sasmita Mishra, take over.
Well, thank you for that lovely introduction. I'm really happy to be here and can't wait to hear what Mamata Mishra has to say about mindfulness. You know, I know that this is something that we really need right now in this time, and I look forward to hearing what we have to say.
I guess it's my turn now.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you all for all those kind words. You be the judge, don't believe anything. Let me start by sharing the screen so you will know what we will do today. Can everyone see this?
Yes.
Okay. So here is what we will do today. I have sort of broken this into 3 parts, and then we will do the question answer. So the 1 hour of talking that I will do will have 3 parts. In the first part, I'm going to go over what is mindfulness, which I'm sure many of you already know. But since we all have different ideas, it'll be nice to have a common idea before we go into it. And then we will do actually some practices, because this is not about conceptually understanding it. It's about understanding it with our own experience. So hopefully that would help. And that's one of the reasons I asked everyone to bring a raisin. And if you haven't, those of you who joined later, if you want to go grab one, this would be a time. Then after we have done the activities, I'm going to again go through some of the benefits of the practice. And since we gave this catchy name, train the brain, mostly as a bait to get you here. But I'll connect how that happens, the benefits and why it's important. And then I'll give over to Julie, Sasmita, and she will do the moderation of the question answer part. Now, even though the main question answer part is going to be at the end, some of the parts, especially during the raisin activity, it would be somewhat interactive. So I would just ask a few people to volunteer. Since we are so many, we can't talk all at the same time. When I ask a question, maybe we'll just, a few volunteers can be picked and we'll do the interaction so everybody can participate through the volunteers. Does that sound good? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Someone was saying something?
Yes, those who volunteer, we can have their names in the chat. Then we can maybe add a spotlight or something so that you can interact.
Okay. Okay. So what is mindfulness? I think maybe one or two people can say something. Anu, you want to say? I know your son is involved in mindfulness. So what is mindfulness to you?
It's a type of meditation, focusing on one something, anything.
Okay.
It could be breath, it could be object, and it could be a thought also.
Okay.
Just concentrating in one thing.
Okay, that's good. Anu has given a more detailed definition, but let me give a high level. At a high level, what is it? So, mindfulness is a short form that stands for mindful awareness. So it's an awareness that emerges. Emerges meaning it's already there, except that we are not in touch with it, and we become attuned to it. So awareness that emerges, and how does it emerge? And Anu mentioned that. It emerges by paying attention on purpose to the experience of the present moment, non-judgmentally. So this triangle I have in the middle, if that's your experience of the present moment, and to explore that, you need three things. One is your attention. You are paying attention. But more important than that, the intention. It has to be very intentional. You know, from childhood, we have been paying attention because our parents told us to do it or our teachers told us to do it. But here we are intentionally going to have to pay attention. And the third thing that's extremely important is the attitude. And the attitude has to be non-judgmental. And so sometimes people wonder, what does that mean? How can I be non-judgmental? So one way to invite that attitude of non-judgment is to have curiosity. When you have curiosity, judgments just drop by themselves. So being curious, being friendly and kind. So that's the attitude we invoke. We have to have an intention and we have to pay attention. That's all. So it's very simple, but it's not easy, even though it's very simple. So now let's look at that middle part, exploring the experience of the present moment. What is our experience? How do we experience anything? What do we need to experience anything? Let's see, I'll pick someone. Jitu.
To experience anything, we need interest. We need curiosity.
Hold on. Those are the things we need. But how do we actually, once we have gathered those, what do we do? What exactly we use? What is our experience? How do we know what is our experience?
Through our senses.
Through our senses, that's right. So we have 5 senses, and also, of course, the mind has to join everything, the 6th sense. So that's all. So that's all we need. So with that, we explore with curiosity what is happening right now. And that is all there is to mindfulness. And sometimes it helps to say what it's not. So what is it not? Anu mentioned that it's a kind of meditation. Yes, you can do mindful meditations, and we would be actually doing one today. But, and a lot of times, people find that meditation is very relaxing. Meditation can be quite relaxing if we are not struggling with it. But mindfulness is not just relaxation, because there are lots of things we can do to relax. We can just sleep, or we can do something else like doing something fun that we like, watch a movie or listen to music. The second thing I wanted to point out is that a lot of people come to my classes to improve their concentration. Meditation does improve concentration because we are paying attention, and so our attention goes up. But it's not just concentration, it's even more than that. Some people think that meditation is for sannyasis, people who after they have retired can go to the Himalayas and meditate and get enlightened. And I wanted to say that this is not about meditating and getting enlightened. It's more like laundry. It's very drab. There is nowhere to go. It's about living life right here and right now, the present moment. The fourth thing is, it's not exactly doing something, even though we would be paying attention, we would be having the right attitude, we make an intention. So there is some wise effort needed, but it's not about doing anything. It's about just being. It's about doing nothing and just being. So the question is, who are you when you are not thinking about, you are not having any judgment, you are not really thinking any self-referential thoughts? Who are you at that time? So it's sort of like that. It's just being in the moment without any judgment, and still open and alert and knowing everything that's happening in this moment, which includes all your senses and your mind. So hopefully it's a little clearer. So where is it coming from? Is it something old? Is it something new? Because mindfulness as a name has become a buzzword now. And pretty soon you'll find commercially people selling mindful shirts to mindful food to, I mean, I'm already seeing stuff like that. So what is it? Where is it coming from? It is actually as old, at least as old as the Buddha. Buddha was probably the first mindfulness teacher. He went out to find a solution to human suffering, as we have all read in history in elementary school. And he came up with some simple points, and mindfulness was the centerpiece of that. Now, mindfulness is there in most spiritual traditions, one way or the other, including the Hindu Vedantic ways and many other wisdom-based traditions. The difference is that Buddha sort of made it his central point. So if you start from wisdom and you apply mindful, you start with open-mindedness or faith or trust, whatever you want to call it. And when that passes through mindfulness, it blossoms into wisdom. So that's one example. So anything you can start with, if you apply mindfulness to it, it blossoms into something even more meaningful. The reason we are hearing about mindfulness more nowadays is because it came to the West, and Western modern scientific research got interested in it. And this study has been fairly new. 40 years is not too new. 40 years gives us enough to see that it's a good thing, that it has benefits, that it can be beneficial and practiced even by people who are not from Buddhist tradition. But it's young enough compared to other scientific studies, say medicine, which people have been studying for hundreds of years now. So it's young and promising, and research is really, nowadays we find almost every week a paper being published, whereas 40 years ago, initially it would be like maybe 1 or 2 papers a year. Initially, it started out in the clinical studies. At the University of Massachusetts, they started the Mindfulness Center in 1979. And it started as a stress clinic where they did clinical studies. Because John Kabat-Zinn was a professor in molecular biology at the medical school at UMass. And his friends were all physicians, psychiatrists. And they were finding that a lot of patients were coming who had mental issues like anxiety and depression, or had physical chronic pain because of incurable diseases. And so John thought that in addition to the modern medicine, if they could do some mindfulness practices, what will happen? So that was the question he had on the table. And his friends who were physicians, they were open to start a clinical study on this. So that's how it started. And then initially, most people were skeptical. You know, this was just stuff, the new age stuff, the yoga, meditation. We're talking about 40 years ago. But they said, well, it doesn't hurt to do it. So they started somehow John found a room in a basement at the medical school. And he said that anyone who wants to try this in addition to taking drugs can come and meditate with me. And the results were very promising. They found 2 things. One was that people who did meditation in addition to the drug therapy, less of them came back for more medication after 6 months. So the number of patients who claimed that they got cured, that number increased. It was larger. The second thing they found that those who came back after some time, again complaining and again asking for more painkillers or more drugs for anxiety or depression, the duration after which they came back, that duration was longer. That means they felt better for longer before they came back for more medicine. So this encouraged all the researchers. So more and more people started doing clinical studies. But then something even better happened. The MRIs were invented. So when the MRIs were invented, the neurologists, neuropsychiatrists got very interested because they could actually look at the insides of the brains and compare between the brains of people who don't meditate and the brains of people who do meditate. So initially they did a lot of research on Buddhist monks who have been meditating for years. And then they really found that their brains looked different. And then the question was, well, these people are monks. Maybe their brains were different to begin with. That's why they became monks. what about us, we the ordinary people? So then they started looking at taking before and after images of people who have done only 8 weeks of meditation practice, about 30 minutes a day. And then they found that even in those cases, there were changes in the brain. So that really interested them to continue this. So now again, going back to the classic way of what Buddha taught, he taught mindfulness can be practiced in 4 different ways. One is, they are called now 4 foundations of mindfulness. So first one is awareness of the body. In our body, we have so many sensations, from minor itching to major pain that kills us. So paying attention to the sensations in the body, mindfulness of the body. And that includes the breathing. That's also part of a bodily experience. That also includes all our senses. And we'll get to that in a few minutes with the raisin. The second thing, second foundation is what Buddha called in Pali language, he called Vedana. In Odia, we usually, when we hear the word Vedana, we think pain. That's the Odia meaning. The Pali meaning of Vedana is all the feeling tones, the pleasant, the unpleasant, and the neutral. You can have all kinds of emotions, but they can be in general grouped into 3 categories: pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Pleasant and unpleasant, we talk about, Hindu scriptures talk about it a lot, raga and dvesha. Bhagavad Gita talks about it a lot, and all the Upanishads and most of the Vedantic texts talk about them. So feeling tones is the second foundation. The third foundation is mindfulness of the mind itself. So in the mind, we experience thoughts and emotions. So mindfulness of the mind. And then once we start doing that, and we can do this even in a short time, even today, we can see the connection between the body and the mind and the feeling tones very easily. And then the fourth one is mindfulness of some of the truths that arise as a result of the practice. And he called it, so basically it's called mindfulness of the dhamma. Dhamma is the Pali word for the Sanskrit word dharma. But if again we sum it up, it's about noticing how everything changes, how everything is impermanent. We notice that sensations in the body come and go. We notice our breath comes and breath goes. So it's not like we are born one day and after 90, 80, 90, 100 years we die. We are being born and dying every moment. So that's the impermanence part of it that you can experience through meditation, and you don't have to be a monk to do that. And the second part of it is the impersonal nature of every encounter. We suffer because we get entangled with the self-referential thoughts that refer to me, mine, I, all that. But really, when you meditate and look into it as things are, just the way they are, you find that these self-referential pronouns are not needed. Anger arises before the I comes and grabs it and says, I am angry. Even Shankaracharya talked about it. Shankaracharya talks about mind as antahakarana, inner instrument, which has 4 parts. mano, buddhi, chitta, ahankara. So the doubtful mind, the memory that comes in here says, here it is. You want help? Here it is. And then the buddhi, the wisdom mind, which says in a firm way, this is what it is, understanding. And then the ahankara. And if you look at the word ahankara, there is kara. It doesn't say aham. It says ahamkara, meaning self-making. So think about that. So we are constantly self-making when it's not there. So Buddha called it emptiness, and Vedantins called it, something else, and they fought for many thousand years, I guess, hundreds of years. And then finally they said, oh, we're talking about the same thing. Okay, so Buddha is the incarnation of God, and Hindus sort of accepted him. Anyway, so how do we practice? There are many different mindfulness tools. In Buddhist monasteries, they mostly sit and walk. So when I go to my silent retreats, that's what we do all day, from 6:30 in the morning to 9:30 at night. We sit for 45 minutes, then we walk for 45 minutes, and we are meditating the whole time. But that's not always possible. So in these 8-week programs which John devised, we also add yoga, which is a movement practice. So basically, you practice with a still body or with a moving body. They're gentle and versatile practices anybody can do at any time. You can do them in a variety of ways. Sitting, standing, lying down, walking. So disability is not a problem. In the retreats, I have seen people who can't sit, they stand. People who cannot lie down, have back problems or something. They can sit in an astronaut, so can lie down in an astronaut pose, they call it. So there are a variety of ways. The practices are very gentle and very versatile. Remember the kindness element. So being kind to yourself, the self-care is extremely important in these practices. You can't be harsh to yourself. There is no right or wrong way to do it, as long as you are following that simple definition of paying attention to the experience of the present moment. Now, these practices can be done in a formal way, like we will do just in a few minutes. They can also be done in an informal way, meaning doing it anytime you remember. Anytime during the day, in whatever you are doing, you can brush your teeth in a mindful way. You can take a shower in a mindful way. So whatever you are doing, bringing mindfulness into your everyday work. That's the informal practice. It can be practiced internally when you are working on yourself, which is what we mostly do in silent retreats. But it can also be practiced externally. Many of you may have thought of the word called emotional intelligence. There is even a book on it. So because as human beings, we are always interacting with other humans. So bringing mindfulness into our interaction is practicing it externally. And I said that it's very simple, but it's not easy. It seems like it's very paradoxical, actually. One of the questions people ask, well, you are asking me to do something and you are saying to do nothing. Isn't that a paradox? Yeah, it is. So it can be paradoxical. So it needs a lot of patience. It needs some attitudes that help with some of these obstacles. Doubt is a very big obstacle. You can get discouraged saying, oh, I'm doing this and nothing is happening. So again, remembering that it's not about any goal. There's nowhere to go. You do it right here. There's nothing that's going to happen afterwards, or nothing to, you don't do it because something will happen afterwards. You do it just because right now you're doing it. So doing is because it's the being thing. To be is the doing. So anyway, I think I've talked everything that I wanted to talk. So let me stop screen sharing and let's do the raisin eating. How about I'm going to change my screen to gallery view so I can see all of you, or some of you at least. So how do we bring mindfulness into one raisin? How are we doing time-wise?
I think,
Good.
yeah, I think we're fine. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll do 2 activities. First, let's bring your raisin out, put it on your palm. Don't put it in your mouth yet. So we're going to do darshan to the raisin. Okay, when you go to the temple, you do your darshan. So one of the things we will invoke is curiosity, just like a child. Say, so how can you be a child with the raisin? You have seen the raisin, you just got it from your kitchen. So looking at it, think as if you just arrived here on Earth in a space station. You came from a different planet where grapes don't grow. So you have never seen this raisin before. So you put it on your palm, and what are you seeing? You don't know that it's a raisin. Okay, Sujata, I'm going to pick you. If you would unmute yourself, what are you seeing?
A rough stone.
A rough stone, see? So she has seen lots of stones in her planet. So her memory is saying, oh, this is some rough stone. Okay. Can you, how else, what else do you see in it?
Well, then it's golden color.
She sees a color.
Yes. And then
What else?
see shape also.
Shape. Yeah.
Oh.
Color and shape. Yeah. You said, did you say rough stone?
Yeah.
Why did you say rough?
Rough because the surface is rough. Raisin's surface is rough.
So the wrinkles.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're
Not
seeing the
smooth.
wrinkles. Okay. Yeah.
I just, sorry to interrupt, but I was just hoping that if people wanted to volunteer, maybe they can raise hands also. Do you think that will work?
We
Or we
could
can say,
I'm just thinking of time. That's all.
okay, okay.
Is it okay if I just pick someone
Sure. Yeah.
from the screen I can see? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can, if somebody wants to volunteer for the next act, we did the seeing. So what about smell? Volunteer for smelling it? See, if I ask that, nobody answers. It's easy to pick.
Somebody had raised a hand earlier. That's why.
Okay, you tell me if you can see who raised hand.
No. Now I don't, but
Okay.
I will tell you later.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So moderator.
Yeah,
okay.
I can volunteer.
Okay. Chandra.
Smell, well, I came from the planet, so I'm just saying the smell as human being. So when I smell a little sweet.
Okay.
That's what I smell.
Okay. But you are smelling something.
Smelling, little, yeah.
A sweet smell.
I smell pidgely. I always smell Claudia.
Yeah.
So,
now see how the mind is connecting. Memory is connecting and mind is connecting because we are interpreting it with something that's familiar, like her stone, like your pidgely, right? Okay. Let's go to the third sense, hearing. I bet you never heard a raisin before. Can you hear? Take it close to your ear. And any volunteer for hearing?
It is no sound because it doesn't move.
Okay, so Sujata cannot hear any sound. Anybody else can hear anything?
There is no sound.
No sound, okay.
I put closer. I felt as if the cotton swab is coming. Like I put very close. So I'm feeling as if the cotton swab, we do that, I thought as if it's coming.
So, but is that your sense of hearing or is that your sense of touch?
Well, like when you have the cotton, when you do it, I always do, so it has like a grrr, like that. So I put it very close.
Okay, so you heard something.
I
the
heard
squishing sound.
Like the nurses put the drops. But I put it very close.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that it doesn't matter whether you can hear or not. But see, this is, again, what we are doing is we are isolating all our senses. All of this happens so fast that we don't get it, we miss it. So I wanted to know if you said, when we put, because you said cotton swab, we put the cotton swab in the ear. So were you referring to the sense of touch or the sense of hearing? That the sound it makes when you do whatever you do with the cotton swab. Is that were you referring to the hearing or the touch is my question.
Not really touch, because touch you said, like even the pouring, like when you put the drops.
Yeah, there is some sound.
So, some kind of, maybe I'm going a little bit too much.
No,
but
that's okay.
That's the way I felt.
Sure. That is your experience. Yeah. Some people feel when they squish it, some raisins have a seed because some grapes have seeds. They hear the seed. Okay. Now let's do the touching. Any volunteer to describe what the sense of touch tells you, how you describe it? Anybody?
I think it's rough. It has a rough, when you touch it, it's sticky.
Sticky, huh?
And has a rough, sticky feeling to it.
Okay.
When you touch it.
Okay. What else anybody can feel?
Feels like a soft bug.
Soft.
Like a bug. Some kind
Like
of
a bug. Yeah. Again, you see, association is coming. We are describing with what we know, what is familiar. So our perception always relates to something we are familiar with, and we are drawing inference. Just with a raisin, so much is happening here that we don't usually pay attention to. Now, I think some people might be salivating. So maybe it's time to put it in your mouth, but don't chew it yet. See if the sense of touch inside the mouth is any different than on your fingers. Just hold it in your tongue, and if somebody wants to shout out, if the sense of touch is different inside your mouth. I see some nodding heads.
Yes.
Anybody
It's in
wants
my
to?
mouth, but I don't feel anything.
You don't
Besides,
feel
there's
anything.
something in my mouth. No taste.
Okay. Anybody has any? Is it still the same, or is it changing inside your mouth as you hold it?
A different feeling when it touches tongue. It's a different.
Okay. So how is it different?
You're able to feel the grooves a little bit more. Actually,
Okay.
there's a heightened sense of
Heightened
touch.
sense.
Yeah.
Heightened sense. You see, we have more nerve endings in the mouth than in our tips of our fingers. And so there's a heightened sense. So maybe it feels bigger. It may actually be getting bigger because it's absorbing all that moisture from your mouth. but it may feel bigger than it is. Sometimes, when you have something in your eye, it feels like a rock and you take it out and you can't even see it. So the sense of touch is very different in different parts of the body. Okay, now let's go ahead and, if you haven't already chewed and eaten it, go ahead and finish it. And if anybody wants to describe the taste.
Sweet.
It's sweet.
Sweet.
There was no
Sweet.
taste before, now it is sweet. Yeah.
Now, does everybody here like the raisin? Is there someone who doesn't like it? Is mind coming in saying I like it or I don't like it, or I love it, or I hate it?
I love it.
Love it.
Okay.
I like it.
See, I love, I like, I don't care, neutral. One guy once told me that he said that, my mom used to pack raisins in my lunchbox when I was in kindergarten. And I have been eating raisins since then. And now every time I feel a little hungry, I help myself to a handful. Today is the first time I tasted a raisin and I don't even like it. I don't know why I have been eating this all my life. And this was a young man in his 30s. Okay, so hopefully you have finished eating it. Where is the raisin now?
Stomach.
Digested.
Yeah. So something that was outside of you is now part of you, right? External, internal.
Mhm.
External has become internal, physically. Okay. Now, what is it you did not see in the raisin? We looked at the raisin. What
Sweetness.
is it? You didn't see the sweetness. It's a quality. That's true. What else you didn't see in the raisin? Any philosophers here?
I mean, even now,
Yeah,
even now,
as we looked at the raisin, what?
and it's already in.
Yeah, it's already eaten. Yeah, but
So
when we haven't.
we-
What about the raisin that we haven't talked about? Is there anything that was hidden in the raisin that we didn't?
Yes, usefulness. We didn't know it was going to be delicious.
Okay.
Mamata Appa, this is Tita. I'm sorry I joined very late.
Ah,
And I do apologize for that. But I think I do not even know what's the backdrop. But when we eat the raisin, we tend to forget where did it come from.
see, I was looking for the philosopher. There she is.
Oh, no, not really. But I was just having a glimpse.
Yeah, so we don't see where did this raisin come from. We don't see all the hands that went from planting the seed to the grape vine, to all the people who plucked that grape and how it got processed, went to the grocery store and somebody went, bought it to your kitchen and now it's in your hand and then in your mouth. We missed all that. But that's also part of the process. So even behind that one little raisin, thank you, Tita. Behind that one little raisin, there is so much. So the things we see and the things that are hidden in it. This all are part of our experience. And, her mind gave that association in a more higher philosophical level. And all of you contributed with the sense information. And all of this is happening every time anything that we encounter. But most of the time, we are not aware of it, right? And mindfulness opens up our world in this big way. I'm not suggesting that you spend 15 minutes eating every bite you eat, but mindful eating is what you have done in a very slow way, because we also talked about it. It's eating with your senses and your mind, bringing all of that together. And even in India, the Ayurvedic eating is that, eating with all your senses and your mind. Okay, let's now do a sitting meditation practice. How about that? Everybody's sitting, right? In some way? Okay.
Yes.
All right, so let's do a sitting meditation. Sit comfortably. You don't have to sit straight or stiff. We're going to do again a practice that's, and we'll do it very quickly because we have limited time. So I'm going to introduce all those different foundations of mindfulness we talked about through this very small practice, maybe 10 minutes, at most 15. So anybody can do it. I mentioned that these practices can be done by anybody at any time. So this would be the offer right now. So go ahead and sit comfortably, whatever comfortable means to you.
Meditation.
Let's see, will the host mute everybody? So if somebody joins, there won't be any sound. So just sit comfortably and invite your attention to your body. Just like you might step out the door to check weather, step inside your body, check the weather. Just a general weather pattern, peaceful or fatigued, whatever comes up for you. And notice that your body is breathing on its own without any help from you. Now feel the breath in your body, wherever you can feel it. For some people, it might be at the nostrils. For some people, it might be at the belly. For some people, it may be at the chest. And for some people, it might be anywhere in between or somewhere totally outside of this path of the breath. But somewhere in your body, you feel your breath. And now make an intention to be present in the area where you feel your breath, just for 1 minute. And with an attitude of a friend. Sort of like a friend dropped in after a long time, and you're welcoming the friend. And you're curious about the friend. So inviting that attitude and just being present with your breath, that is your friend. After all, who is a better friend than your breath? You might find that even with your intention to be present, your mind will get distracted. Some thought will pop in, or somewhere, some body sensation would attract your attention, or a sound perhaps. But if that happens, that's not a problem. All you have to do is come back to the breath and begin again with a new intention. Now gently invite the attention to your feet, just your feet. Being open to anything or nothing you can feel in your feet. And now invite attention to your lower legs, the feet and the up to the knees. Sensing into them. A lot of times when we talk about body parts, mind goes to the mirror. And that's not what we are talking about here. We're talking about the felt sense of the body. And now inviting attention all the way to the hips. So holding both your legs in attention. So the felt senses can be many. It could be just the knowledge, the awareness of the relationship of that part of the body to gravity. What you are feeling, heaviness, lightness, etc. It could be the warmth or coolness that you feel, temperature. It could be sensations in the skin layer, like itching, or in the muscular layer, like tightness, or in the bone skeletal layer, like pain in the joint. And these sensations could be again pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. So without any judgment, just being present to receive whatever the body has to offer in this moment. And inviting attention to the upper body from your seats all the way to your shoulders. Again, knowing whatever is here to know in the body, staying within the boundaries of the body. And in this part of the body, because there are so many internal organs, your sensations might be coming from within those as well as the 3 layers I mentioned, the skin, the muscles and the skeletal layer. And extending to the arms and hands. Perhaps you can feel the weight of your hands on your lap. Perhaps you are aware of the layout of the fingers. Perhaps you can sense moisture or dryness on the hands. Or perhaps you can sense nothing at all. Here, we are not looking for anything in particular, but we are open to receive whatever is here. With the open, welcome heart. And now coming along the arms all the way to the neck. Being aware of this area. And perhaps the weight of the head is now more evident. And now bringing attention to the head and the face. And perhaps you can sense that your face is resting. All day the face carries the expression of your thoughts, mirroring it. And now it has nothing to do, just resting. You might notice that your jaws are unlocked. And if they are not, you can invite them to unlock themselves. And now let's reconnect the body, noticing how head is connected to the trunk with the neck and through the shoulders to the arms and hands and through the hips to the legs and feet. So expanding attention to occupy the whole body again as one unit containing so many parts, functioning all together, all by itself, with you having nothing to do. And understanding and appreciating here that as long as I am breathing, there is more right here in the body than wrong. No matter how bad things may seem, no matter how painful some parts may be, at this moment, in the safety of this moment, with your complete attention and presence, there is more right in the body than wrong. And know that you may will it in. you can make that same wish for yourself, repeating these phrases to yourself in your mind silently. May I be well. May I be safe and healthy. May I be strong. May I be free from danger. May I be happy. And just breathe into it and make it, wish it to reach every cell of your body. This invocation of wellness. And you can add your own language. And now expanding attention to extend out of your body and becoming aware of this community or everybody together connected through the screen virtually. Feeling everyone's presence together as a community. And feeling how connected we are as human beings. And how this human connection is such a great need for us. And extending those loving, kind wishes to everyone here. May we all be happy. May we all be safe and free from danger. May we all be able to experience the ordinary joys of life, moment by moment, as life unfolds moment by moment. When you are ready, you may open your eyes and join the community. Had this been an in-person class, we would have discussed what it felt like. But let's hold our discussions to the QA section that Julie will lead. But before that, let me show you a few more slides, and then we'll so you just did some practices and you may have felt something, or you may have felt nothing. Either way is fine. There's no particular way to expect anything. And sometimes, this is an introductory class, and of course you are here, so you must have expected something. But one question people ask is, why should one practice? And these are some of the things that are real from what my students have said before, that they get what they get out of it. Some people say they get more composure, energy, understanding, and joy. They can cope effectively with stress situations because it's a stress reduction class. that I do, that the 8-week class, then people come because they are very stressed. Some people say, and they come prescribed by their medical doctors sometimes to better manage chronic pain that doctors cannot do anything about. People come sometimes to improve focus or their resilience, sleep quality, if they can't fall asleep at night, or improve their relationships, think about all the external practices we do. And the research shows many benefits. So let me just show you what the research shows, and then we'll go to the QA. So the research shows improvements in 3 areas mostly. Reduced improvement in symptoms, and that matches with what students report. Reduced stress, anxiety, and depression. Better sleep, mood, and focus. The second kind of thing that researchers have found is improvement in biological markers. One is it shows lower cortisol levels, and I know there are many medical doctors in this room who know more than I do. So the cortisol levels are connected with stress levels. It's a stress hormone that gets released when we think that we are in danger. We may not be in danger, but something signals that we are in danger. So our cortisol level goes high. That would be fine if we can run it off. When we were living in the caves before civilization started, we saw a tiger and then we ran away, or we we made the fear go away. The cortisol level goes away if we fight or if we flee, if we run away. But nowadays, our stress is not actual physical tigers. They are paper tigers. They are our spouses, our bosses, our work, and all that. So there is that cortisol level that accumulates in the body, and that's how it adds up and we feel stress. So there is improvement. It shows, the researchers have found that they find lower cortisol levels in people who practice mindfulness. The other thing that I didn't know until I took this class, that it also shows in the cellular aging. So telomeres is the term used. They are like little caps at the ends of our chromosomes inside our cells. And they find that, so for us to die, the cells die. Cells are dying all the time, even though we are alive. So the cells, before cells die, these caps come off, the telomeres. What research shows is that the age of the telomeres is longer in the practitioners of mindfulness, which means cellular aging is reduced. And so then one might wonder if at the cell level aging is reduced, does that also happen at the whole body level? That's something researchers would know more than I do. Changes in the brain, coming back to our title, what researchers have found are mainly 2 things: decreased amygdala size and increased gray matter in the prefrontal cortex. Now, let me see if I should. Okay, I'll still screen share. I'll come back to that in a minute. So, but basically, prefrontal cortex is so if my fist, can you see my fist instead of my face?
Yes.
It's not in a fist fight position. It's in this position, so relax. So Dan Siegel, a neuropsychiatrist, he does a lot of, he works with families kids and families. And he uses his fist as a simple model of the brain. And so this part, so this is your spinal cord, your wrist is your spinal cord. The palm is the brain stem. That's our reptile brain. You know, in us, we have three brains, say reptile brain. This is our limbic brain, the primate brain, monkey brain. And this is the human brain, the neocortex, and it sort of wraps around it. And so this part is the prefrontal cortex, which is the part that develops even after we are born. So it sort of goes at fetus level, these parts form, but the prefrontal cortex right behind our forehead. You know, monkeys might be looking at us and thinking we are so ugly. What's this bump here? You see, monkeys don't have a forehead. They don't have this. So this part is the human brain. It's responsible for at least 9 different functions. And this is the part that is the wisdom brain. That's the 9th function. The intuitive wisdom is there. Out of the 9 functions, many of them are developed because of because we are mammals. We have the child-parent bondage. Because of that, most of them develop. But the 9th one, the last one, is the intuitive wisdom that develops more through meditation, is what they are thinking. So anyway, I'm not a brain scientist, so let me not say too many things here. So what happens? What is the different characteristics? I mentioned that we go from doing mode to being mode. So what are the differences between these two modes? You know, we are humans, we are always do. From childhood, we have seen, if you are sitting, people will tell you, don't just sit there, do something. In the meditative community, we do the reverse. Don't just do something, sit there. So that's the reversing from doing to being. But then, you know, you will say, what do I do? Quit my job and just meditate? No, of course not. So how do we bring some being into our doing is what we can do with mindfulness practice. You know, all the informal practices help us do that. And the formal practices also help us. So doing a little bit of formal practice every day and a lot of informal practice all day will get you there sooner or later. You know, as I said, it's like laundry. Your clothes get dirty, you have to wash them again and again and again, once a week. So there are shift happens. This is from researchers William and Penman. So normally we are in autopilot. You are driving and you don't know where you're driving. You know, you put the car in autopilot because you know how to drive, and you are thinking of something else. As you are unaware. Your body is somewhere, your mind is somewhere else. Whereas in the being mode, you are aware. So every choice you make is a conscious choice. Okay. Second difference is instead of when we think normally, you remember something, you know, something had happened in the past and that thought just comes and we start spinning the thought. Why did that person say that to me? So we start analyzing. Was he mad? Did I say something to him or her? So we are normally in that analyzing mode when we think. In the mindfulness practice, we go into sensing mode. So sensing deals with the present. So the thought came, and before you start analyzing it, something has happened in your body why you started analyzing. Okay, maybe we'll do an experiment right now. Might be a good idea. We have time. We still have a little bit time left. Let's do a quick experiment. This is my last slide, actually. Then we'll go to the question answer mode. It might be fun. So close your eyes again, and if you will, and you don't have to meditate. Just hear what I'm saying. And as you hear, keep your attention in your body and see if something happens as a result of what you hear, just through my mouth. And this is coming from Dan Siegel. I just heard him listening to one of his tapes. No. 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 Yes. 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 You can open your eyes. Just one volunteer, if you want to say if you felt anything and if there was any difference between what you felt when you heard the no's and what you felt when you heard the yeses. Let me pick someone. Sweta Padma.
Thank you, Rini. No, did not have too much impact on me. It was more like neutral because I'm not generally impacted by that. But yes, definitely had impact on my body. I felt expansion. I felt happy. So it has very expanding feeling of expansion and happy.
Thank you. Let me pick someone else, or someone else wants to volunteer.
Yeah, I can volunteer because of what Buinani said now. No felt like a rejection. It's like somebody hitting me. That's how it felt, very strong. And I guess because of the way I feel. And I hear
How did you, where in your body did you feel that?
Actually, my whole body. It was like a jerk. Yeah. It was interesting because I know that that's not what you're saying, but that the power
No,
of
that is exactly what I'm saying. That we feel things in our body, but that is what I'm talking about, this sensing. This exercise was just to understand analyzing versus sensing. When someone says no to us, we feel something in the body. And because we feel something in the body, the mind jumps and fights with it in its own words. But we miss that most of the time. Mindfulness wakes us up. And if we are aware of what we are sensing before we open our mouth to react, our reaction would be very different. Just experiment with that. Don't take my word for it. The third difference, thank you, Jitu, and thank you, Bui. The third difference is striving versus accepting. So accepting sometimes feels like something forced on you, and that's not what I'm talking about. It's more like allowing. Allowing something is already here, like you said, Jitu, you felt it in your whole body. And so your body is asking for your kind attention at that time. So whatever you are feeling, allowing it instead of brushing it off sometimes. And I did this a lot, people who are all together, who feel confident, who feel that they can handle a lot of things, which is probably most of us here. We jump into the solution mode right away. And before that, this poor body is feeling something and wants to be loved. It wants your love, your own kindness to the body without judgment. So sensing gives that to us. And so Dan says, what does he say? He says, pet the alligator, hug the monkey, and then you can be a good human. So we forget to hug the monkey before we jump. And what happens is, and again, this is what Dan says, that, since it's trained the brain, I'm just throwing in these things. And, this is a very crude model, very simplistic. If there are neurologists here present, you know that. And please know that I know that. So what happens is when we react, see, when this is closed, the two middle fingers here, the thumb is inside, the two of these fingers are touching the middle part, and you see how the brain is connected. So this is physically just showing, but neurologically in the nerves and the way nerves are fired, a relaxed brain is all connected and together, which means the prefrontal cortex is receiving information from both the reptile brain and the limbic brain. So if something is happening, prefrontal cortex knows what exactly is happening. But normally what happens is the amygdala is very strong, which is part of this limbic brain. So it sort of heightens. And so this gets disconnected. So, when we are angry, we say, somebody tells you, I'm not going to tell him that because he's going to flip. Well, this is the flipping that happens. The prefrontal cortex gets, I'm just showing a physical, metaphorical model, but neurologically, that's what happens. The brain gets disconnected. It jumps to act before it has reviewed the information. But if we sense what is happening, then the monkey has been hugged. And then the prefrontal cortex stays connected instead of monkey pushing it farther away, kind of, in a simplistic way. So allowing, so you sense what's happening and then you accept, it's already here. So rejecting is sort of going in a denial path, saying that, oh, I'm not afraid. And this has happened to me, really. One time I was terribly frightened because I thought I was going to get cancer. I was terribly frightened, but then I was denying it. I'm saying, oh no, nothing has happened. You can do it. And I was acting as if nothing had happened. And at the same time, I wasn't attending to my body and I got terrible diarrhea. And then I thought, oh, something is wrong with my stomach, my digestive system also. See, it's going in the wrong path, totally wrong path, all because of that denial. And you can be very intelligent. This has nothing to do with intelligence. This has to do with our brain staying all connected and functioning as one unit. So accepting or allowing and not really working too hard. We just think we are trained to stay in our head rather than in our bodies. And so we always think that we can think it out. Anytime there's a problem, we think we can think it out. Sometimes we get problems, we cannot think it out because it's not in our control, but we still, out of habit, we keep thinking because we feel somehow that At least I'm doing something. It gives it gives us the feeling as if we are doing something and not sitting idle. And that's why just out of habit, we start thinking about it. Sometimes we avoid something that's painful. So this mode, the fourth one, is approaching instead of avoiding. Even when something is difficult, instead of avoiding it, and we all do that, if you know somebody you don't like, or you know that somebody will say something that will make you angry or make you sad, you might avoid that person, if you have a chance, One time I was an editor and I had to deal with, I had to bug a lot of editors to give articles. And every time they saw me, they sort of would pretend that they didn't see me and just go away. And we all have done this. You know what I'm talking about. Avoiding versus approaching is the fourth one. Time travel versus staying in the present moment. If you examine your thoughts, most of the time they are something that came out of the memory that had already happened in the past, or something you are planning, like right now you might be planning, Super Bowl is happening, so many people are going to come, I have to serve snacks or all that. So that planning always goes on in the mind. Mindfulness is not doing the time travel, not staying in the past or the future, but being right here, right now. So right now, Super Bowl is not happening. Right now, I'm still talking, even though you might not be listening and thinking about the Super Bowl. That's perfectly okay. But that's the difference. Sixth thing is taking thoughts as real. We believe what we think a lot of times, especially if we think that we are very good analyzers. Of course, that's how it happened, we think. But thoughts are just thoughts. They're not real. They are mental events. Same with emotions. They come and go, just like waves, just like your breathing. And the seventh thing is interesting. When we are in the doing mode, we feel depleted. After some time, we feel fatigued. But in the retreat, being there, some people ask me, how can you meditate for 6 a.m. to 9 p.m? Don't you feel tired? I said, no, I feel very relaxed. It's very nourishing. That's what it feels like. It's very nourishing. It's not depleting. So I think that's my last slide. Good place to stop and listen to your questions. Yeah. Stop share. And okay, Julie.
Yeah, thank you, Auntie. That was wonderful talk, actually. Quite frankly, this talk couldn't come at a better time. The pandemic has really brought out not only a global health crisis from a medical standpoint, but a mental health crisis. And you can see a lot of people are struggling at this time from a mental health perspective. And what I feel is that what we haven't done in the past is try to take control of our mental health and make that a priority. And part of this mindfulness talk is really taking control before it gets out of hand. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you specifically is, in this day and age of technology, iPhones, things that cause instant gratification, really, how do you take yourself out of that and put yourself into a mindful aspect? There's apps, there's a lot of things that are out there that we can use, but really, how do you force yourself on a day in and day out to remove yourself from the technology and put yourself to think about yourself and give yourself perspective?
Yeah.
Do you have recommendations for that?
Yeah. So that's a very good question. That's something people ask. So what you are pointing at is that we are creatures of habit. Okay. We know what we should be doing, but we do something else. We are addictive to thinking. I use the word addictive. I think Eckhart Tolle says that. It comes from him. We don't know this, but we all are addictive to thinking. We are addicted to thinking. We are addicted to technology. I do this myself. I am a night owl. I spend hours at the screen at night. I do that because the day I don't get to do that during the day. There's so much else, so many other things to do. You know, beautiful day, you can go for a walk. So I do my practice during the day. So how do we change our habits? Now, one thing, you know, again, coming back to the topic about brain connection. So everything, so there's this line, neurons that fire together, wire together. And that's how habits are formed. And the other reason habits are formed is because there's a reward at the end. You know, we are like those lab mice that we do experiments with as humans. We are like mice, really. We also have our own rewards. So if we can figure out what the reward is that I'm getting because of what I'm doing habitually, whether it's screen or something else. So now, again, I know that Dr. Judson Brewer, who is the head of research at Brown now, he used to be at UMass, he has done a lot of research on changing habit with mindfulness practice. So what he does is he sits with people and maps out your habit loop. So in your habit, you do something because you are getting some reward, and that enforces your habit, and you do it again, and more and more and more you do. Neurons that are fired together, wired together. So your wiring becomes even stronger. So you keep on doing it more and more. So, but once you know it, so people, if they are asked to quit smoking, go cold turkey, they wouldn't do it because it's too hard, because the habit is too strong. So Judd's method is don't go cold turkey. You can smoke as much as you want, he says, but smoke mindfully. So when they smoke mindfully, they realize everything that's happening. Before, they only knew the kick after the smoking, or whatever they forget the anxiety or whatever it is. There is some reward, whatever it is. I've never smoked, so I can't really say from my own experience. But when they mindfully smoke, they also see, just like we tasted the raisin, oh, it tastes bitter. Oh, I don't really like also this. So they were ignoring their total experience and focusing on one very small part of the experiment that seemed like a reward. But they were missing all the punishment that was happening. When you are aware, when you are doing your bad habit mindfully, you also see the punishment that's happening at the same time. And then you give it up on your own. So you use the word, how do I force myself? And I always tell people, never force yourself, because force goes against kindness. So invite yourself to do your bad habit mindfully and see what happens. So that's my invitation.
I like that. One of the things that I have told my patients in the past, because part and parcel, I think, of cancer treatment is being mindful and understanding the process of being diagnosed with cancer and the treatment, and kind of accepting and moving forward with it. And what I have told my patients sometimes is, the only purpose of technology for mindfulness is set a time on your phone and say, at this point, I'll do that mindful meditation. I don't know if that's something that you think is helpful to use, just to kind of force someone because it does take what 28 days they say to develop a habit. But once you start getting into that moment, you're going to start wanting to do it on your own, you know?
So you
So I
have
do
to
think-
experiment with, so in my 8-week program, the first week I tell everybody, okay, you have assignment, everybody gets an assignment. So they get a 45-minute formal assignment to do every day. But I won't tell them what time they would do it because they have to decide it themselves. It has to come from intention, their own intention. So you have to set your intention, whether it's through an alarm on your phone or in some other way. Some people put signs on their walls. So whatever way, you have to be creative to come up with what will work for you to do it. Yeah. And then the informal practice too. That's important.
I just want to remind the participants, we have a chat button on the bottom. Feel free to ask some questions. I already have 2 that I want to ask you. 2 questions. One being, is multitasking the opposite of mindfulness? Especially now when you work from home, you're taking care of a kid, you're working at the same time and making meals. How do you feel about multitasking?
So let me ask that question back to you, whoever asked. Can you multitask in one moment? You can multitask in 1 hour, right? But in one moment, can you really multitask?
Maybe not.
What you can do is see your attention. See, as we did the sitting meditation, you noticed that your attention is flexible, right? You can focus it, it's like a lens of a camera. You can focus it narrowly on one petal of a flower, or you can take a whole scenery, right? Your attention is like that. When you are multitasking, you probably have a broader focus. So you can, you are cooking and you are aware that your child is playing, but your broad awareness is there that if the child gets into trouble, you can intervene, right?
Yeah.
So you can broaden the screen, but it's still fixed and you are still intentional. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
So I think that answers Sujata Patnaik's question is, how do we mindfully multitask? So when we do multitask, you're saying everything is done with intention. Every thought, every action is done with intention, even though.
And you set that to depending on your capacity. Everybody's different. Okay. I could never do 2 things at the same time.
Sure.
Never, ever. But there are lots of people who do it.
Is there a time that you think that the mindfulness meditation may be most helpful during a day? Or is it the time that you pick that you think is best?
I always ask people to pick their own instead of dictating a time on people. Some people find early morning is good, but then some people just can't get up in the morning. You know, ask your teenager to get up in the morning on a weekend. So it's better that they fix a time that works for their schedule. You know, some people work night shift. So, you know, I never dictate a time. Again, that would be part of the intention.
Sure. One of the things I think a lot of people have also probably faced during the time of the pandemic is always facing the question of what's next? What do we need to do? My uncle actually, Gati Krishna Tripathi, is asking, how we may be protective, but how do we control that thought process of always thinking what's next? Like, how do we get away from that? And really, I know it's the practice of mindfulness, but are there any quick shortcuts that you recommend to kind of quickly get away from that? You know?
Thank you, Jolie.
So you were asking, how do I stop asking what next?
Yeah, because like you said, when we were doing the mindful meditation, during that time, other thoughts may come into your mind.
Yeah. So first you acknowledge that I'm asking what next, non-judgmentally.
Okay.
This is what's
Okay.
happening. This moment's experience is, I am asking this question. And then if you ask it again, then that is the experience of that moment. And sooner or later, you'll get bored. And mind would want to do something else. Does that make sense? Try it.
Okay, thank you. Actually, yes,
What
just
I thought was,
okay.
go ahead, Manam.
No, actually, this is the first time I attended this mindfulness. I would say very useful session that taught me something I have never imagined that it will be so helpful. And the way I did that couple of sessions, so like the resin thing and the second thing with the I would say closing eyes, thinking about the body, going through all the way from breathing, going through the leg to head. It really relaxed me. I was telling my wife, this kind of thing actually helps. I never thought that really it would work, but it really works. Thank you.
Yeah. And you did a very short practice, and I purposely did that because this is a short session and a very introductory. But we actually did 3 practices, even the forget the resin, that was one. But just in that sitting, we did awareness of breath. In a retreat, we would do awareness of breath for a whole week. But you did it for, just 2 minutes. But you get a taste of it, even with 2 minutes. Then we did what we did. We went from feet to head and the whole body. That's called a body scan. So that's a whole practice again. And normally I give homework of a 45-minute body scan. So just think, if just 2 minutes made you relaxed, the more you do, the retention is longer. That's the difference. So both are good. The short things are good because, and then the third thing we did is called loving kindness meditation, where you wished for yourself and for others. That's called loving kindness meditation. So we actually did 3 meditations in about less than 10 minutes or at most 10 minutes. So at your work, they say, say doctors, there are many doctors in this room, in this virtual room. You are busy people, you don't have time. So how do you do this? Even if you are a TI person or whatever, most people are very busy. So how do you get mindful if you can't have 30 minutes a day to practice a whole meditation? How do you do small bites throughout the day? There is something called a doorknob meditation. And doorknob stands for the transition moment. So one doctor said that he does this. So he's going from patient to patient. And what do you do? Before you go into the room to see a new patient or a different patient, you stand by the outside, you look at the chart and your hand is on the doorknob. That's your moment. Can you be mindful at that moment? And how many times you are opening a new door? So think about what's your doorknob in your day when you can bring mindfulness. And it could be just that checking in, what's my weather right now? The moment you intentionally bring attention to your body, it will automatically relax because that's the neutral state it wants to be. So that's the trick.
Excellent.
What I find, that's a great point, actually. What I found really interesting, obviously from a medical point of view, is the increased in activity in your prefrontal cortex that you see on the brain. So we actually have a physiologic sign that mindfulness improves your prefrontal cortex. The way I think about the prefrontal cortex, how you described, is without your prefrontal cortex, we can all operate fine. We can all do our daily activities. We can all do everything. What sets us apart as humans from the monkey and from other animals is that we have this higher level executive functional thinking, which is our prefrontal cortex, which helps us mitigate and control our impulses, helps us, change our stress levels. We won't bark at the next person that they argue with us. So that in and of itself, by showing that mindfulness actually truly bulks up our prefrontal cortex and changes it, shows us that we're really helping decrease our cortisol levels and really helping us, people improve. I think there was a question here that's saying, how do I help my patients use mindfulness both during the diagnosis and during treatment for breast cancer? So, as a breast radiologist, unfortunately, I'm one of the first people to tell my patients that they have a diagnosis of breast cancer, and it can be devastating to anyone because everyone goes automatically to worst case scenario. Part and partially, I think, of why I'm able to do breast imaging and is that the majority of our patients do really well. But a large part of it, it's a long haul. It's not an immediate treatment. It doesn't happen. You're not cured immediately. There is a long process that happens. And so part and parcel of what I tell a lot of my patients is that with mindfulness, you develop this ability to decrease your stress levels, learn patience, learn the ability that things aren't going to happen immediately. And we are a country and we are a state of immediate gratification. And so everything that we do, we want done immediately. But with the diagnosis of cancer, those results aren't immediate. And so a lot of times we just always tell our patients to bring it back a step. First and foremost, accept that you have a diagnosis of breast cancer. Go through those emotions. Don't hide them. Don't bury them deeply, because that doesn't help. Accept them. Go through the emotions, talk with people, and really with the mindfulness meditations, with the mindful thinking, an example that I give my patients is you could be stressed all day thinking about breast cancer, going from one oncology appointment to another, but literally you're walking from one place to another, you see a flower, stop and smell that flower. That really, like you said, the doorknob mentality, that brings you back and resets you. To appreciate the finer things. And I do think that does help our patients a lot,
I just wanted to mention one thing. And again, we don't do this until class 4 in the 8 weeks, but I'm doing a lot. I'm just throwing in a lot that we cover in 8 weeks. This is an introductory class. Buddha talked about 2 arrows, the first arrow and the second arrow. And now scientists are talking about the same 2 things as external stress and internal stress. So the first arrow is in your case, what you talked about, Julie, the diagnosis. It happened. You have no control over what has happened. That's the external stress. Somebody else shoot you this arrow. You didn't ask for it. It's already here. But then what happens is that, actually, I know we are kind of getting over time, but if you want to stay, I can share just one picture. Would you like to?
Yeah.
Just one page. And it'll be a lot clearer, because that's what Julie is talking about. And I'm kind of tempted to show this. This picture says 1,000 words. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Picture of a generic human being. So we have built-in evolutionary in our brain of this fight and flight mode. So something happens is externally, that's the first arrow that comes, and automatically the flight and flight syndrome acts up, our sympathetic nervous system acts up. So we have a stress reaction. And then if you have some disastrous things like breast cancer, I just have been reading the logs of one of my friends, a student actually, who has been going through treatment. And so, this arrow comes in different forms again and again and again. One treatment, then a test, the PET scan, then something else, then something else. So it happens, continues. And if you are not able to handle it, you go to a chronic situation, chronic stress situation. So what happens is that all these glands act up, cortisol is high, adrenals, pituitary gland, hypothalamus, they all act up. You have acute hyperarousal, so blood pressure, heart rate goes up, blood pressure goes up, because evolutionary, the brain thinks that it's going to work to remove you from danger by running away or fighting. So it's preparing your body to run away. That's why blood pressure goes up, pumping more blood to your muscles to help you run, but you are not going to run. You're going to for another treatment. So understanding that. And then the second arrow, which is where we have the ability to change, is these internal stressors. And these internal stressors are our own thoughts and emotions and our pain. So this is like we are shooting ourselves. And you might say that, hey, I don't want to think, it just happens. So that is where mindfulness helps, is that if you are aware that what is happening is your second arrow that is happening, coming internally, your own thoughts and emotions, if you are aware, then what happens that the mindful response kicks in. All you have to do is pause. Just pause and take a deep breath. And the minute you do that, your brain gets a different signal. The brain gets a signal, all clear, no danger. It's like what happens after the zebra runs away from the lion in the savannas or whatever they call it. So the mindful response is to first become, just pause and be aware. Sense what's happening. Sense what these thoughts are doing to your body. So that shift from analyzing what's going to happen, who is going to take care of me, to what is happening right now. And you might notice that your stomach is burning. Your muscles are tight. And then body will automatically say, hey, baby, I love you. I'm here. I'll take care of you. Give the monkey a hug. And when that happens, the brain gets a different signal. Instead of going on this red side, it goes on the blue side. And a mindful appraisal happens. The parasympathetic nervous system, a different nervous system, acts up, which increases calm and connect. That this happens instead of this. The flipped lid closes. And then openness and curiosity, out of that, new choices happen. Like Julie said, talk to friends. The idea of talking to friends would come instead of shutting down and staying home and, doping yourself or just sulking. Adaptive, healthy coping choices emerge out of that new wisdom that is already there. Just you had lost. Here you lose access to it. Here you gain access to it. So instead of going down this path, we go here. This part we can't do anything about. But the minute this happens, we can come back and go this way. Instead of, this is our habit loop. And this awareness breaks the habit, pause happens, then you go here. And again, remembering that the neurons that fire together, wire together, more often you are able to do that, more easier it would be to do it again, because this habit then would become stronger. So, sorry, I took the floor away from you, Julie.
Julie, you have to unmute yourself.
Oh, sorry. No, that was wonderful. Actually, a great explanation. Are there any other last minute questions? I think
we are. Does anybody want to say anything? Uma Bhaina is here. Yes.
No, this was a beautiful presentation, Rini and Julie. That was great, organized by USA Women's Forum. I was listening, maybe not all of it, but some part of it. Working in cancer for over 25 years. Well, maybe more, longer. Getting prompting from the background. I think it's a very important part of, more important, as I understood from this conversation here, from the talk here, you must think, while most of the women are multitasked by genetic potential, that is not so with the men category. I don't have to say that to get acceptance in this audience, but if you look at it, they are mostly multitasking personality. But when stress comes to you, you have to realize what is important. Like what we have been going through for last 2 years. And how our children, some people have teenage children, some people have school, first, second, third grader children, how they're handling them. What is happening to, so if you look at each of this, you have to isolate it out, whether you do it mentally, whether you do emotionally, whether you go the doorknob type, whatever way, it is up to you. All the lectures cannot help you if you cannot focus yourself. Yes, the meditation is very important part of even this pandemic situation. Can you practice even 5 minutes of meditation 3 times a day or 2 times a day? Can you make that commitment? Can you not go to 5 items of WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, and maybe do once a week 1 item and the next week another item? Because nothing is waiting for you to commit your time and increase your stress. All the things which was explained, the cortisol levels, the adrenals, the pituitaries, everything else becoming hyperactive and causing you problem. Angiopa is there, she most likely can add with years of practice. And so my feeling is, yes, if you can help yourself, you only can help yourself. I cannot take another 15, 20 minutes of time, but I learned that with my cancer patients. As Julie pointed out, you cannot take it away. You gave her diagnosis, and that will take its own time to heal or feel and then heal. So a lot of things which we cannot tell in this small time limited fashion. You have to individualize yourself, what is you are capable of, what you can do to help your stress reduced. And you don't have to stay till 2 o'clock in the morning to finish some unfinished work. You can reduce your number of items so that you can finish by 11 o'clock or 10:30 or so. Because nothing is more important. If you are malfunctioning, you cannot do any function right way. So that's all I can say. But Rini, that was a beautiful presentation. I mean, Julie, of course. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I think Anji will say something now, and then we'll close after that. Mute Chandyapana, Anjana.
I have nothing to disclose or tell, Everybody has their own way of relaxing mind or mindfulness, whatever, And yes, we are multitasked, as we have already the center there for the multitaskings. But as for the patient's care, I mean, like we are busy, how to relax. We don't have time for meditation, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. But I do my meditation at the time of my prayer, just for 10, 15 minutes. I can get my own way just to concentrate, like you said yourself, Mamta, like that, you concentrate on your own body and you relax. The breathing is the best exercise to feel how the air goes to the little alveoli. Give them little time so the blood can come and they can interact, and then all the bad things will go out and then it will come out again. So the same way I do all the time, like just to impure and purities, in your blood circulation, I do that, and that makes my oxygenation a little bit better. And yes, for the patient, when you go, you don't have time, and the patient is really in a stress or something, and your stress level goes up because, they say something and you started talking a little bit more, they say something more. So what you do is just keep quiet and let them do whatever they want, like, oh, you did this and that, yes. And then what? Then they calm down. Then you can conquer them, or you can conquer your own anger inside. That's the way I do. I don't know. I love my patients.
Great point.
Okay.
Thank you.
So thank you so much to everyone. So I think just wanted to thank everyone here. I know we went over, but think about, we have 40 people here now. We had 49 and 50, but some people had to leave. And so you can understand how everybody knows how wonderful it was. So I just wanted to tell you one thing. My daughter is saying she's ready to talk to us about everything that she has learned. And she said that you're the one who's always telling me to do something instead of being something. So, but anyway, thank you so much. Thanks everyone, the whole team. Thanks Julie for the wonderful moderating. Thank you Anupa for introducing our wonderful speaker and moderator. And what Uma Bhaina and Anjana and everyone, this was such a wonderful seminar. I want to close by saying that I learned today loving kindness, gratitude, having the right attitude, doorknob. I'll remember that, even though I'm not a doctor and not that busy. But I'm absolutely convinced from listening that this really brings a lot of joy and helps us all. I know that I'm standing between you and going for your Super Bowl festivities. So I'm going to stop here and we will close. And
Can we share Mamata's information in the chat?
Yes. Do you want to write your email address? Oh yes, one important question. Are you going to share the slides? Can we share that with the people? Not here, but maybe put that on our OWE link website.
I can share. Yeah. But I think this was also recorded, right?
Yes, this was recorded.
So that would be there. Slides were shown there. I think.
Right.
Yeah.
It might be better that way because then the explanation would be there.
It's also going to be there. That's true. Yes, and we can share that.
I'm putting my website link here. It was on the first page in this. I'm putting it in the chat. Just my first name, last name, and Weebly. It's become capital. I think it's lowercase. Oh, it went to one person for some reason.
Yeah, so I can write it down if you.
That to everyone. You have mine, right?
At weebly.com, I think.
Yeah, we did. Okay,
Uh,
now I think it went to everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, it's okay. It shows.
Yes. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
setting it up. It was really wonderful.
Yeah, you
Yes.
can email me through my website. There is a contact there. Then you don't have to remember the email address.
Thank you so much.
It also
Mm.
has the
Thank you.
different class announcements and stuff.
Yeah.
Excellent presentation.
Thank you all. I didn't expect to see so many people between Sakala Pokala, Upparavada football. So I am really touched. And you all did such a wonderful organization. And thank you,
Thank you.
Julie, for your insight and,
Yes, yes.
and all the other doctors who plugged in.
Thank you,
Thank you. I
Jitu.
learned a lot.
Thank you, Jitu.
Namaskar.
Thank you.
बहुत बढ़िया लगला
Entire working team.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Namaskar.
Thanks.